Cool, right. Hello, assalamu alaikum. Assalamu alaikum is a Muslim way of saying hello and peace be upon you. I think it's even better than just saying hello. Uh, so what is this happiness show or class? It's a live question answer. Hopefully you can see that right now. But if you're not joining in live, feel free to ask questions during the show, after the show, whatever. It's not just for Muslims. This is very much open to everybody to learn very age-old, tried and tested ways of finding happiness, and it doesn't cost you anything. In fact, yeah, it doesn't cost you anything. We can go into that. Anyway, so I do this every week. It's very casual. At the moment, because I don't get people asking questions, I just pick up like 6 topics. So I've got a topic every 10 minutes or something, just to make it interesting for any different kind of person who might be watching. And yeah, that's the intro. Yeah, I think I'll just get into so I start off the shows with a weekly happiness tip, and then I talk about all sorts of other things that could affect your happiness. So let me quickly go through what I'm going to be talking about today. So weekly happiness tip is how to think positive. Not like you can just tell people to be positive, but that doesn't really work. There's lots of things in Islam that make you have a positive mindset. So I'm going to go into that. The second thing I thought about talking about is, well, I like to go through other people's ideas of what makes people happy. So there's a video I came across. There's an old Japanese way, Ikigai or something. Okay, so I went through that video, and I'll discuss what I think about that person's tips on happiness. Another one is the importance of community. So I was talking to a friend and I said, what should I talk about this week? And he says something about the importance of community, why it's difficult sometimes, why it's important, and all this kind of stuff, and how you can get it. Veganism. So I was having a wonderful walk and talking about life, and one of my mates said, well, he couldn't actually think of a topic for the show, but I remember he was talking about it. We didn't really discuss it. Should we go vegan? You know, what are the pros and cons? And that's going to be part of your happiness, right? It might sound strange. Why am I talking about absolutely everything to do with life? Well, being happy, the skill of being happy is your ability to navigate life, be healthy, be comfortable with who you are. So one of the reasons why we're vegan, are vegan, is because they don't want to harm the world. And so all these things affect your happiness. So that's one of the reasons why I'm going to talk about it. Then I'm going to talk about economics. Basically, what I had in mind for that section is Islam's amazing ways, tried and tested, even in Europe, you might be surprised to hear, ways of improving economic welfare of the country, the world, whatever. So I talk about that. And I like to end with misconceptions about Islam. So this week is going to be, what is halal? Why do Muslims not eat pork and stuff like that? Anyway, intro done. Let's talk about how to think or be happy. So um, I did a quick Google search, and this is kind of useful to see how to find out more about Islam. So let me do stop share again, and then what was it? Application window. This one. Here we go. Got it. All right. Okay. So let me just get to the right page. There we go. All right. Okay. So what I did was, before the show, I searched hadith, which means basically sayings of Prophet Muhammad. Okay. So that's like the Muslim, it's an Islamic term for sayings of Prophet Muhammad, right? So you can find out loads of stuff. You could write hadith on whatever. So I said hadith being positive, right? And what did I get? Nice little website, which a lot of my favorite hadith. Um, think win-win. Okay, so I'll just read it out and then talk about it a little bit. Um, Amazing is the affair of the believers. I mean, people believe in Islam, or actually probably a lot of religions. You find that there's a lot of how can I say, commonalities between people who believe in God. And you'll find that in the Middle East, because I'll just sidetrack a little bit. You'll find that in the Middle East, people are so much more connected. Muslims, Jews, Christians, um, yeah, than you hear on the news. On the news is quite a different thing. I lived in the Middle East for a few years. Anyway, amazing is the affair of the believer. Definitely all of his life is good, and this is not for anybody except the believer. If something is good happens to him, he is grateful. Sorry about all the noise. Um, and that is good for him. If something harmful before him, he is patient, and that is good for him. All right, so couple of like subtle and important things. There's a lot of subtle things that are said in these sayings and in the Quran and stuff like that. So let me break it up. So in short, what it's saying, if I read it really badly, okay, in a sort of broken way, what it's saying is Muslims or believers see there's a sort of plan in life. There are no accidents, okay? And I want to talk about that in a bit more detail. Um, and so whatever happens to you is for your benefit. It's not like God trying to be mean to you. And what happens is that if something good happens to you, it's like, oh, great, something nice has happened. Let's celebrate. Muslims love to celebrate. That's an important thing. Okay, and it helps with the positive thinking by being easy on yourself every now and then. But when something bad happens, they can see the benefit in it. But it's not always easy to see the benefit. This is a subtle thing that was mentioned here. He's patient. He or she, okay, right, is patient. You see, you cannot see the benefit of things straight away. Sometimes it's after the fact, or after you go through the trial and you see the benefit afterwards. And seeing that pattern again and again, um, you find you tend to become more patient because you start realizing there is a benefit from X, Y, and Z, right? Another side of being patient, and patience is another thing I will talk about sometime in the future, very important religious spiritual teaching, is that even if you're patient, like for the first 10 minutes of a trial, and you go, calm down, relax, just think about what happens is, instead of panicking and getting angry, you start thinking, maybe you reflect and you calm down, and then you make enough time for yourself to realize there might be something good in it. Okay, um, so patience is a really good skill to have to be able to think positive. In fact, patience, the word patience in Arabic, I've talked about it before, has a very specific meaning. Maybe I'll go into another time, but to be able to be patient, the word patient in Arabic means to stay calm at all times. So maybe I'll go into that another time, because I'm trying to focus on the idea of being positive. Okay, so yeah, I just another saying. I am as my so this is like God saying, I am as my servant thinks of me. I am with him when he remembers me. If he mentions me with himself, I mention him with myself. So it's just a general, really positive way God thinks about you. So people, if you like when you read this kind of stuff and you know that you're always serving God, and then you know that God is watching you and helping you, and you will experience that more and more, that also makes you positive, right? Not just these theoretical ideas. And when you hear God saying all these beautiful things about how he loves to help his servants, and says things like, I am as my servant thinks of me. So if you think positive of God, God will be that positive God. And there is wisdom in that. Maybe I'll go into it. Anyway, 10 minutes over. I'm going to stick to my schedule. I need to get better at explaining or sticking to a point, maybe. I don't know. Anyway, what's the next thing on my list? Stop and share and click on. Oh, I'll get better at this eventually. It's very casual. I'm purposely being really casual about how I do these things. I'll probably get better over time. Anyway, Ikigai. Here we go. So I was watching a video um, about some Japanese art of finding your purpose and happiness. And there were some really interesting points that I thought had a lot of value. So start small. That's a really interesting one, and I want to. By the way, I don't want to just say this is the Islamic idea of happiness and therefore it makes sense or something like that. I will often refer to different scientific ideas that are out there. You can Google yourself. But anyway, start small. That's a really cool idea, first of all, because a lot of people say, I will be happiness if I can have this huge thing. Okay, fine. Aim big if you want. That's cool. I aim big all the time for lots of things. But if the only way you'll be happy is to achieve that huge thing, um, that's a recipe for misery, isn't it? Like, then you'll be like, even if you achieved that great thing, like, okay, now I achieved it, you'd be happy for a few seconds, and then you achieved it. So what, right? Then what? Okay, so start small. That's a pretty good tip. And so that's very much kind of in the way Islam works, because Islam is, well, definitely does not teach. It it asks you to have high ideals, but achieving them is not the point. It's about working towards them. Maybe you will start something off and somebody else will carry on, but it's not about selfish ego of achieving things. It's all about the small acts of kindness. And Islam is all about these small things to make the world a better place. I'll just give you an example, and this kind of stuff does make you happy. Like Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, said, it is the smallest kind of act of charity is to move a twig or a branch of a path, so people can go walk past. Like, that's the kind of level of good acts that Islam encourages you to do on a daily basis. Just being kind, being soft towards people, smiling. Islam talks about all the small things. So this idea of starting small, that's so in line with Islamic ideas. And those kind of things, it's the small stuff that makes you happy. I did say before that I repeat myself a lot, and that's kind of a good thing, because if it was really complicated to be happy, that would be a bad thing, I think. Okay, it's not that complicated, and most of the ideas I will say them different ways from different angles, but the same old few ideas, that to find happiness, it really, really is a small thing. So I think last time in my last video, I talked about this guy who is so happy in a place called Bali, and he's like, why am I happy? He's like trying to understand why he's happy. Why does he feel like he's got so much energy? And all it is, or part of all it is that people just smiling and say hello. Okay. seriously, people be so much more happier in London, where I am at the moment, if everybody just said, smiled and said hello to each other. It's weird that maybe it's hard to believe, but that is the stuff that makes us happy. Okay. So, anyways, free yourself. Uh-oh. This is what happens when you don't 100% research. I like made these notes and I don't even read them properly. Free yourself. Yes, I remember what it was. It's a great one. Right. So basically, it's like, don't be trapped by other people's ideals of happiness. Like, if other people's ideals of happiness is to get a really expensive car, nah, I don't know. I'm not really impressed by that. I mean, like, my example is that my ideal is to live in a tent in a hot country, so I don't actually in a place where I probably won't get robbed every morning or something like that, right? So I can live in a tent without too much security, because I'd rather be more of an outdoor person. I don't want to be in a huge mansion. I've worked in for lots of rich people in their mansions, and it's not anything. It's has no value. Yeah, everyone just gets used to it. I've seen people happier when they get into smaller houses because they actually bump into each other more, and families feel closer in the smaller houses. Just to give you an idea. So free yourself from other people's ideas of happiness. Okay, look for what really makes you happy. Okay, how is that in agreement with Islam? I suppose, yeah. Yeah, so in Islam, in the Quran, it says, often the beliefs that we hold are just the beliefs that our parents had, and we just take them on. So free yourself from ideas that you've inherited and try to think for yourself. Maybe look into Islam and you'll see some alternative ideas of happiness, like the ones I'm telling you. I don't think I'm saying anything all that complicated, though, when I talk about my alternative ideas of happiness. I'm just going to have a little sip. Oh, yeah, and that just reminds me, I am looking at the live chat. If you feel like asking a question, please do ask questions. Anyway, yeah, look for harmony and sustainability. So in line with Islam, that idea. And you know what? Actually, I shouldn't be surprised that there are a lot of ancient ideas are in line with Islam. Okay, that's because Islam teaches, and it says in the Quran, that for every people, I sent a prophet. Like, you might know of certain prophets like Jesus or Abraham or whatever, but there are loads of more prophets, okay, that we don't know about, that are not necessarily mentioned. Okay, so yeah. Anyway, so it wouldn't be surprising if, like, for example, I believe in Confucius or Zoroaster as a prophet, These are kind of Chinese prophets. Yeah. So yeah, look for harmony and sustainability. Absolutely, there's no point getting too excited for a short time and it doesn't last. You want lasting happiness. Okay, drugs is an example of the opposite of lasting happiness. And drugs, what they often drugs that get you happy are actually classed by medical people, doctors, whatever, as depressants. Why? Because they shatter your harmony, internal harmony, called, I forgot what it's called, but your body is constantly trying to find harmony, right? And so it's the tip of my tongue, that word. I don't know. Yeah, but anyway, it doesn't matter. So you're always looking for inner calm, inner harmony, and actually that reminds me of what happiness looks like in Islam. In Islam, we're told not to get too excited. Sounds really weird, but actually that's a trick for a steady increase in happiness throughout your life. Okay, so just smile, don't laugh out loud too much. Okay, sustainability, yes. So a saying, I've got like 30 seconds left of this. So Islam teaches about God likes things that are done prefers things that are small and consistent rather than in one big lump. And that kind of thing also makes you happy by doing small and consistent things rather than pushing yourself to your limits to achieve something. That is a recipe for misery. Enjoy the small things. Absolutely love that. Agree that. Pay attention to the here and now. Value your life today is a teaching in Islam. So it's true. I agree with that. So loads of agreement there. Okay, next one. The importance of community. Right. Okay. So my friend was saying that he feels that there's really a lack of community. Well, you can say he feels, it definitely is, right? Especially in London. Um, but he was also talking about sometimes in our own Muslim community, we don't value it enough. Okay, and he's really frustrated, and he should be. Well, I don't know if he should be, but I get frustrated as well. So I can see where he's coming from. Like sometimes um, we don't. We sometimes get into the mechanics of doing good things, and we miss that sense of community. So why is that important and stuff like that, right? So let me give you an example of a beautiful thing that happened maybe an hour ago or something. Okay, so I'm part of the Ahmadiyya Muslim community. uh, we are like a revolutionary group that want to change the world through love, and our motto is love for all, hatred for none. That's my little quick intro about who I am, where I'm coming from. Anyway, so and so what happened an hour ago was somebody knocked on my door, and he said, from our local Ahmadi Muslim community, we're very organized, let's just say, in many ways, disorganized in some other ways as well. I like to be balanced, okay? But just basically a whole bunch of volunteers doing stuff, okay? And somebody comes to my door with a huge box of biscuits, and he says, like, we're giving these biscuits to all the local members of the community, and it's not like an expensive box of biscuits, by the way. Yeah, that's not the point. Okay, it's just like, here's a gift, okay, for the family. Okay, and what did he say? Yeah, and then, oh, it's COVID situation, is everything okay? Can I do anything to help you out? And it's like, no, I'm cool, but you know what, I want to help you out because that's so awesome what you're doing. So give me a ring anytime you need, right? That's what I said to him. And so, yeah, that was awesome. Just that is community. Those small things are the things that matter. And say I did have a problem with, like, we're all like, we're kind of stronger together, right? So I might have had a problem, and that would have been so awesome. Like if somebody helped somebody else, right? Um, everybody's like strengths and weaknesses, and if we balance our strengths and weaknesses by like focusing on all our different strengths and helping each other out, then everybody benefits. So that's the importance of community, that we are stronger together, we're better off together. It's really hard though. I'm going to talk about that stuff. Why is it so hard to have community? Because there must be a reason why people are not communal in London and so many other places automatically. Although I'm not saying there's no community in London. I try not to be so black and white like that. Okay, so and I'm just going to go on all sorts of little tangents to explain this topic as I go along. So what's this one that comes along? Islam provides defaults. These are like a lot of tips for me, or hints to remind me what I'm going to say. So Islam has all sorts of really small things it does to make communities happen. Okay, so it teaches you lots of small, easy teachings to do so that you become connected. And mini sidetrack, psychologists will tell you one of the key things human beings need is connection. So if you have that thing, you're happy. Like after like food or something. Like if you don't have food, you're going to be unhappy, right? So if you don't, but people don't, they forget the more subtle stuff like connection. People need to be connected. That means don't just have silly conversations, have deep conversations, or really feel connected, but also the small stuff is important, like just smiling at other people, which I've talked about before. Anyway, so Islam provides defaults. One of those defaults is any time you see another Muslim, you should say Assalamu alaikum, peace be upon you. Just that recognition changes everything, right? Okay, the opposite is what we do in big cities, where like we even avoid eye contact. And you might think that's a really small thing, but actually that is exactly the stuff that makes us miserable. Okay, you want to go to the most miserable places, they're the places where everybody ignores the other person, doesn't make eye contact with other people. You want to find the happiest places, they're simply the places where people recognize each other, smile at each other, stuff like that. Okay, so Islam. I want to go to tell you the extremes to which Islam goes in this one particular thing about saying hello, peace be upon you, and all that. Not hello, peace be upon you, assalamu alaikum. It says even if there's two of you and there's a tree in between, and then you kind of lose contact for a second and then go around the tree, yeah, say assalamu alaikum again. Wow, that probably sounds like over the top, but actually it's not, because Islam is so in line with human psychology. So whenever you listen to it, you benefit from it. Okay, Islam is about all the subtle stuff, like continuing from the idea of saying assalamu alaikum. You're supposed to, if it's two men or two women, whatever, okay, or the same sex, let's just say, you should shake hands, right? Like that's an Islamic teaching, but why? Like you might do that anyway, right? So somehow we've picked that up idea. Maybe it's a natural thing to do, shake hands, I don't know, and hug and all that kind of stuff. But Islam says, here's a really, just to prove or give you an idea how accurate Islam is, or how in line Islam is with human psychology and human needs. It says that if you shake hands, it removes bad feelings from you about each other. It says, like, you can check this up, like shaking hands removes rancor, I think that was the word that was used, like bad feelings, anger against each other. And if you study, Google a bit about psychology, you'll see that human contact, physical contact, okay, increases, I think they're called endorphins. I should know about these kind of weird words, right? Especially if I talk about happiness all the time. Definitely not a pro, but whatever. Just the simple stuff I'm going to tell you, that's enough, and then maybe you can go to somebody who knows more, right? But anyway, yeah, looking at the time, 2.5 minutes left on this topic. That Islam just provides all sorts of defaults to make communities work. I'm going to try to get to the next point. I could say so much about the defaults that Islam provides. Okay, if you want to be part of a community, you need to subscribe to its values. Okay, so this is some interesting stuff that's happening. This is all kind of one point. Okay, so yeah, there are some people who don't. They want the benefits of the community, but they don't want to follow the practices of the community. So you see, by subscribing to, you're never forced to do anything, and anything you do that is good is to your own benefit. But by subscribing to those certain values, people can be connected more, and it makes everybody happier. Now, sometimes those values are harder, but I just want to give you an example. I'm kind of reverting to an earlier default, which is earlier point, which is about Islam's default. There was, I'm a big fan of some YouTubers. One is called The Wandering Quinn. Certain YouTubers who are from this country, England, and become Muslim. Now they've moved to Turkey. They're not even related to each other. They just both happen to move to Turkey. Anyway, the point is, so one of them's a lady, one's a bloke, a man, and the lady said that she loves going around with a headscarf who this recent convert to Islam, English lady, because like when she wears that headscarf, people recognize she's a Muslim and they know the rule about recognize in saying hello, assalamu alaikum, all this kind of stuff, and then good stuff happened. So, but that was kind of small point I wanted to make, a kind of very important point that if you value community, then you should subscribe to the values of that community. When you have similar values, it's easier to connect. Oh, time's up for that one. Maybe I'll come to these topics again. I feel like I'm not always doing the best, but anyway, let's move on to the next one. Veganism. Here we go. So, um, should you be vegan? What's that got to do with happiness and all that kind of stuff? Okay, right. So, um, I'll just start off with whatever comes to mind. No, let's just go with this list. Okay. First of all, humans are omnivores. That means they are designed to eat both meat and plants. Okay. Now this might sound like I'm going to make an argument for one particular thing. I'm not. I'm not here to say I think you should do this. Therefore, there are so many good things about being a vegan as well. I'll say that as well, just like a side thing, right? Okay. So if you take a scientific point of view, you're one of the ways we know any animal what it's supposed to eat are by looking at its teeth. So if you've never heard of this idea, so flat teeth are for you demonstrate or give a sign that we are supposed to be plant eating animals. But if you got sharp teeth, especially what we call canine teeth, really sharp ones, not just the flat ones but the pointy ones, right, then that's more of a sign that you're supposed to also eat meat. Now if you go to like 100% carnivorous animal, they just have the really sharp teeth. Yeah. Okay. um yeah, so that's just a scientific approach. And so what I'm saying by that is not just that we should eat meat, okay, but another more interesting point is that there's kind of my second point, whatever, they're all kind of connected points, right? Is we have to remember how little we know about how our bodies work, right? Okay. In just one thing I love to talk about how our bodies work is that we've got these things called proteins. Like some people, like my son, will go, "Oh yeah, I need some more proteins to build my muscles." Like they're not just these things; they're just random chemicals. Proteins are actually absolutely amazing little robots inside you, like super microscopic. I don't think you can easily even see them under a microscope. I don't know how they see them, right? Scientists, right? But anyway, they're actually these little machines doing all sorts of actions and do really complicated actions to connect things and connect computer kind like code called DNA and RNA and all this kind of stuff. Really, really complicated stuff. No messing around little machines, right? Okay. And so my point is, we don't know how complex our bodies are. And to suddenly say, you know what, I understand my body, what my body needs, and yeah, I'm gonna stop eating meat. Probably a mistake to think that much, to think that you know that much about yourself. Okay, I kind of imagine it like if I made a robot and the robot had a tiny bit of intelligence and says, you know what, the robot tells me, you know what, I'm going to do whatever I want. I'm going to start having a drink. Okay. And I made a rubbish robot where it's not insulated. It starts having some water and it short circuits itself. Wow, well done, stupid robot, right? So we're pretty stupid compared to our maker. Now you might say, oh, I don't believe in God and all this kind of stuff. So in short, because I talked about existence of God and all that kind of stuff last time. You can ask about it now if you like, in the chat, or even after the video, in the comments. But it's like very unlikely that God does not exist, and people misunderstand that. They think that believing in God is unscientific, and that's just a lot of propaganda. We can talk about why it's not it's totally scientific, and it's actually unscientific not to believe in God. But anyway, the point is that we most likely have a God, okay, and that God probably wrote the Quran, because there's lots of amazing things in the Quran and all of Islam that tell you that the person who wrote the Quran knows a lot of good stuff that helps us practically, right? So, and that the Quran lays out lots of really good things for us, and it does not say stop eating meat. Now, I'm going to quickly get to the other side of the story. Like, why is it good to be a vegan or a vegetarian? Okay, what are the benefits of it? So, Islam teaches being nice to animals. There's like so many things about being nice to animals, and you might say, as a vegan, who might say, how can you be nice to animals and eat them? Maybe I'll quickly explain that. Well, okay, we all kill things. Vegans kill things. They kill plants. Plants are animals. Oh, sorry, plants are living things according to science. Okay, there's 7 characteristics of living things, and plants have them all. Okay, so just whatever. You kill germs as well, by the way. Yeah, so we all kill things. So probably a lack of understanding of that, if that's your reason for being a vegan or something, or argument totally against killing things. But back to my point. So when I lived in a village a few years ago in the Middle East, we ate a lot less meat. Like, we would eat meat for one dish as a family on Fridays, like a celebration dish. Okay, we were a lot closer to the earth, as it were. Growing a lot of our own food and stuff like that. And naturally, it is very hard to grow meat, as it were. Yeah, like when we killed the chickens, that some of the chickens we had, there was next to no meat on the bones. Okay, so it's not so easy, and it's not natural to eat so much meat. So, and we see that problem when we eat the amount of meat we eat in the West, on average. It's actually really bad for you, and it causes you diabetes. So you can see, it's kind of a way of seeing like what you should be eating. Like, your teeth are like a general sign of like stuff, and maybe I would say the the ratio of flat teeth to pointy-ish teeth, okay, demonstrates to you like how much meat you should eat compared to vegetables. Okay, so I would say it's very much in line with the Islamic teachings, that we eat a lot less meat. Okay, Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, hardly ate anyway. Like, he did eat, but I'm just saying, like, he really had a small amount of meat or food at all. Okay, he would normally like just eat dates and water a lot of the time, a bit of milk here and there and stuff like that. Okay, yeah. So another point I googled, like, there are lots of problems they're finding, like in the British Medical Journal. These are not people for or against anything, right? They're saying that it's bad for your brain, it's bad for your bones, bad for your teeth, but that's kind of like your bones anyway. And that's not surprising if you just stop eating any animal products. Like, don't go to the extreme. I totally get that you want to eat less animals, eating way too much, and I commend you. That is a brilliant thing to do, very empathetic thing to do, to feel with animals. But going to the extreme doesn't really solve the problem anyway. In fact, it might cause when you go too far and then you just give up. That's not going. That could be causing. You could have that as well. Anyway, so yeah. Okay, so I want to talk about what is a solution, because I think one of the reasons why we've got a few more seconds on this. One of the reasons why vegans and vegetarians don't eat so much meat is because they want to make the world a bit better. And by the way, animals cause a lot of the pollution, like a third of the methane or the pollution in the earth, greenhouse gases or something, is caused just by farm animals farting away. Okay, so the solution is only eat when you're hungry. If you do that, that will solve it. Okay, that's my quick 5-second solution. Okay, that's an Islamic idea. I haven't made that one up. Okay, probably also do fasting and stuff like that. Like Muslims do all of the fast, and then it just controls your eating habits. I do that every week. It stabilizes my out of control eating habits. Anyway, economics. Okay, what's that got to do with happiness? Well, if there are loads of poor people, I don't know if economic. So let's look at the world economics at the moment. It's like boom bust, boom bust. That's not good for anybody, right? So, and that's not going to make people happy either. So if we can have a better economic system, then that's all great. Okay, so let me talk about some really cool ideas, really simple ideas that stops so many of these economic problems. And I think I'm going to go to a practical demonstration in our sort of modern times when an Austrian town decided to take up certain Islamic, what's it called? Islamic economic ideas. I need to drink. My brain's stopping working. By the way, I hope the sound is better than before. Every single time I'm trying to improve something. So this time we've got a camera, got lights. So I'm not like, I think my video about 2 weeks ago was like I was a silhouette or something. I don't know. Yeah, and then there's this as well. So anyway, what was I saying? Yeah. So there's a town called Wurgel. So after the Great Depression, after the Wall Street crash that happened before the Second World War, so people were in big trouble in this little town, Austrian town of Wurgel, and they saw these kind of economic ideas. They didn't realize they're Muslim ideas because they just got these ideas from some famous economist or something. And in short, the ideas were that any money that is not being used should be taxed. Okay, and that was kind of it. They did create their own what they call currency. They made some stamps or something. Okay, that kind of shielded them temporarily from the economic disasters around them. Because if you use the same currency and it's losing value, you're just self-harming all the time, right? So they shielded themselves by creating their own currency. And the short story is that they became rich really quickly. So why would that one idea have such a positive effect? So there's a thing called money velocity, and basically it means like a single amount of money, the more it's used quickly, the more benefit it has. And the more it encourages good work to happen, it puts labor into action. Yeah, it is a reason for people to do work. It's called money. It's whatever. Okay, hopefully I'm not being too complicated or confusing the way I'm explaining it. So the point is that by taxing money that's not used, it encourages people to keep using their money. This is a totally Islamic idea. The equivalent is something called, it's one of the 5 pillars of Islam, is called zakat. Zakat just means basically charity, and it's taxation of not how much you earn, but how much money you don't use, which is perfect. Like modern day taxes, what they do, and this is all these subtle things that just change the world, right? Modern day taxes, what they do is they tax your income. Okay, this is this might be small to you at first, but this is so important. Okay, poor people live on their income, and rich people live on their profits because they don't. You know what I mean? They just go, oh, I'm just going to use a tiny bit of the money that I've got extra. Okay, so it's really important not to tax income, but what you're not using. Okay, poor people might not have any of that money that they don't use, so they'll pay like no tax in that case, right? Which is awesome. You have all these ideas of progressive tax and regressive tax. Means progressive tax means the more you earn, the more you get taxed, and all this kind of stuff. This is far more revolutionary and far smarter than any of those economic ideas. Okay. Um, and so this idea of spending money so that you don't get taxed and it's properly used, okay, it has a double value in terms of Islamic ideas, and it's the double value is that there was no interest. It's the opposite of interest. Okay, what interest does, okay, is it makes the rich richer and the poor poorer. That's the short version. How does it do that? It makes what it does, it tells rich people, you know, if you put your money in the bank, it will just grow by itself. Okay, because you just leave it there, somebody will invest it, but you will definitely, you are promised that you'll get a bit more money, and therefore you don't move that money. That's the opposite of what happened in this little town called Wurgel, Worgl. Okay, Google it. Miracle of Wurgel. Google that, and you'll learn all about what I'm saying. Okay, so the point is what interest does, it stops money being moved around. It makes rich people keep their money in one place, and it has this effect that, okay, so rich people, by the way, they benefit from interest, and poor people who don't have money keep borrowing money and they have to pay more interest. Okay, so it helps rich people, does not help poor people. And you might say, because I'm going to go through all the different angles, you might say, and I might miss lots of things, but you might say that, oh, interest helps people invest in businesses. No, no, no. That's not an investment, okay? Not properly, not even according to Islam. Islam make in the Quran, it says, talks about this. It says, investment is when you have the possibility of losing when you invest. Okay, uh, that's real investment, not what the banks do. For example, when they give you money and they know they're going to get the money back. So a lot of these really dodgy banks or whatever, where's not a dodgy bank, who knows? But um, they are happy to give you money that you will fail on. Okay, because they know that in return, if you don't pay the money back, they get the whole of your house for cheap. Okay, they win-win, right? So interest, in short, is a really bad idea, and it's really destructive, and it's the opposite of Islamic ideals. Destroys economies. And the last thing I want to say before I forget about it, yeah, I was just checking the time. Before I forget about it, I said in the beginning the boom and bust thing. Yeah, like we make money and then the economy crashes, the whole worldwide and all that kind of stuff. Okay, that is the fault of interest. Why? Okay, why is it the fault of interest? So, what interest does is that I'll give you the short version for people who have already got interest in it. Um, Basically, interest forces your economy to need to grow to survive. Okay, why is so? You need your GDP to keep growing for your economy to survive. When your GDP slumps a little bit or flatlines or whatever, that's supposed to be a bad thing. in modern day economic, but it shouldn't be. It should just be normal. Imagine you had to keep growing your muscles constantly, and as soon as you stop, that's a bad thing. That's not even natural. Okay. Um, I mean, I'm going to go into this in a bit. Oh, 30 seconds left. So if you treat the world like that, that's a recipe for destroying the world. Like you have to keep harvesting, getting more stuff. That's pretty bad. Why is it that the economy needs to keep growing? Because of interest. Let me quickly explain that in 20 seconds. It's because interest forces you, like you get a loan and then you have to pay more back than you took. Okay, which means you have to make more money than you took, which means you have to grow as a business, keep growing as a business. Otherwise, you won't have enough money to give back, and bang, your business is dead. Okay, that's a short version. Righty, next topic. Misconceptions about Islam. Must have a drink. I'm working hard here, talking a lot. Okay, so misconceptions about Islam. Halal, what is that about? Well, first of all, halal is all it means is killing an animal in a way so that there is no bad blood in the body. It's like it's known today as the cleanest way. It's the best way, according to scientists, I believe, to kill an animal. This is the halal way. And I just wanna say something before I forget. Like halal is not a new thing. It's like Jews used to do it and Christians used to do it. Okay. Can go back into, like, you can ask a Jew and then you might be able to ask a Christian, but like say Christians used to do at the time of Jesus because Jesus said he just followed the Jewish law. So it's not like a new thing. Yeah, just means cutting this way with a sharp knife. Um, yeah, you know what? I'm just gonna go back to some of the vegan ideas. Um, so Islam tries to hurt animals the least as possible. Okay, and so by killing it through here, you drain the blood from the brain, and then therefore the animal feels less. It's an Islamic teaching that the knife has to be super sharp. It also is interesting in Islamic teaching that other animals should not hit the animal that is being killed. Lots of stuff like that. Okay, so and maybe through research we'll realize how effective this is. What is the alternative, by the way? The alternative is to a bolt through the brain, like a literal bang through the brain. Okay, that apparently there's different ways, but apparently that is a lot of more harmful because I don't know, but apparently that's not as kind to animals. There is another version which is called by electrocution, like stunning. So the animal is stunned. So it's not moving, but it doesn't mean it's not feeling pain. It just cannot demonstrate its pain. So that's kind of alternative, traditional way in this country to kill animals. Really cruel, by the way. Okay, what else is about halal? Eating pork. So I've been in a taxi and where we talked about this, where some guy said, you know, why you Muslims don't eat pork? It's because it's like you didn't have fridges in the days of like Prophet Muhammad. So for some reason, it doesn't make sense to me, but anyway, it's like this thing that goes around, like people think that we don't eat pork because of something to do with fridges, which doesn't make sense because why do we eat other animals? But anyway, the real reason why Muslims don't eat pork, the word for pig is called khanzir, which means I see it foul. It gives you an idea of what it is, but now we know that eating pork is really bad for you because of the digestive systems of a pig compared to, let's say, I don't know, a cow or a chicken, whatever. Okay, uh, so pigs' digestive system is a lot shorter. What that means is that when it's processing the food, it takes a long time for well, for pigs, it doesn't take a long time to process the food, and therefore there's a lot of unprocessed foods or toxins. Is the result, okay? Bad things for you left in the meat of the animal, in the flesh of the animal, and therefore, basically, you, when eating it, absorb the unprocessed or toxic parts of the food, because you might eat something like, so the pig eats something like dirt. You don't really want to eat dirt, do you? uh, but if the other animals, they process it a lot longer because they've got more stomachs, like pig, like cows or whatever, or they just eat less and process it more faster or whatever. I keep saying whatever, I'm going to stop that. Then yeah, it's going to be better for you. So that's kind of the thing. And again, this is only found out recently why it is bad to eat the flesh of a pig compared to other animals. Now, in Islam, they didn't specifically say there were toxins in the flesh of an animal. It just said don't eat it. And by the way, Jews as well don't eat pork, interestingly. Okay. Um, Yeah, so there's so many benefits that we learn afterwards in time. I've got a whole 5 minutes. What do I talk about? Right, okay, eating pork, done that. What else don't we eat? There's loads of stuff we don't eat, which is besides pork. Um, we don't eat animals that eat other animals. We don't eat animals. I mean, I don't know why that might be bad for you. Probably won't be bad. There's a lot of stuff. Okay, there's a lot of rules that we don't necessarily know the value of, but like as science progresses, we just go, oh, good thing we weren't eating the animals that eat other animals and all that kind of stuff, right? Okay, but we do know there's so many things that help us in Islam that we kind of go, all right, that's like a million things that have helped us so far. I'll trust you, God, on the millionth and one thing that you're telling me that I don't fully understand. Kind of makes sense, right? Like, you know, if your dad helps you out a lot, and then there's just one thing that you can't fully understand that your dad's telling you to, but you do it anyway because your dad's always helping you trust him. It's like a brand, I suppose. I don't want to call God a brand. I'm just saying, trying to explain something. Anyway, so, but there is another thing that makes a lot more sense. Don't eat animals that have been killed by another animal. I think that is. Yeah. And then, no, that's not right, because you can eat animals, specifically, you're told you can eat animals that are killed by hunting birds. That's one thing, but I think not other animals. Or do not eat animals that are just lying around. And that makes sense because there's probably like all sorts of toxin build up. If you don't know, if there's an animal that's lying around for short while, even a few hours or something, flies get in there really quickly. Like, it's not so easy. A lot of us city folk don't have a clue about these kind of things. So yeah, it's very easy for food to get poisonous. And I imagine other animals killing the animal, I'm not sure how healthy that would be. I'm not sure if I would. Yeah, yeah. Anyway, so trying to squeeze out as much as I can about the idea of halal. I know people, lots of people go and people who are not Muslim go to halal shops because they've somehow figured out that halal meat is more healthy. And oh, this is something I was going to explain about halal. Part of halal, kind of just before halal, is something called tayyib, which means treating animals nicely. So being kind to animals is so important. And obviously, if you're, I'm not sure if it's obvious, but if you're kind to animals and feed them properly and give them light and all this kind of stuff, I think a lot of times we kind of realize like battery farm chickens are not good for us. That is not tayyib. Okay, which means pure in Arabic. Okay, so be nice to animals is being nice to animals is part of Islam. And so if you have these animals being treated kind of in a sort of, what's the word, free, All the words are disappearing because I'm getting tired. Okay, free range or something, all this kind of stuff. Treated nicely, then their meat is gonna be better for you when you eat it. Yes, it's true. Okay, feeding it proper things, what it's supposed to eat, not what it's not supposed to eat, all sorts of crap. That's not really being nice to animals. Um, yeah. All right. Well, thank you for listening, and please feel free to ask questions in the comments, or just come to my next show. It's every week, every Friday, 7 to 8 p.m. Yeah, I'm just gonna keep doing it, and the whole point of this is to make people happier, and I hope somehow it is having that effect. I've got 2 seconds. Assalamu alaikum, peace be upon you. People say that, Muslims say that for hello and goodbye. And so do Jewish people as well. They say Assalamu alaikum. Allah, Assalamu alaikum. I'll go now.